أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله.
A man walks into a city he has never seen before. He knows not the ruler's face, nor does he know the man of the market. But he knows where the masjid stands. He knows when the prayer will be called. If he is wrong, he knows where the judge sits. If he dies, he knows where he will be buried. This social cohesion was not brought through the attainment of peace. Rulers still oppressed their subjects. Infighting was rampant. The men of history struggled for power just as they do today. But beneath all of this, there was an assumption. Islam was not meant to be lived as a private belief inside the hearts of the believer. It had law, it had authority, it had courts, it had order, it had borders it was willing to defend. The Muslim was not simply a worshipper confined to the masjid. He believed and was a part of a public order that claimed responsibility for his life, rejecting the idea that Islam must be subservient to the laws of man. And this is a world that this series begins with. The Muslims who inherited a political imagination in which Islam was allowed to govern. The political nature of Islam is not found in a constitution. It is found in a sentence. La ilaha illallah. There is no God except for the one true God. At first, this statement looks purely theological. A man claims there is one God and one God only worthy of worship. But if that was the case, that this statement was purely theological, then it becomes difficult to explain the reaction and retaliation of the Quraysh. Mecca had heard of monotheism before. The Arabs were not strangers to the name of Allah, nor were they strangers with no memory of Ibrahim, peace be upon him. Even before revelation, there were men who rejected the idols and strove for the straight path. Zayd ibn Amr is the clearest example. He refused the worship of idols, objected to the Quraysh's sacrifices, and would say that he worshipped the Lord of Abraham. But he did not build a movement. He did not claim revelation, nor did he call Mecca to a new public order. He was a seeker of truth, but not a reformist. The Quraysh viewed him as an annoying preacher and even as a family embarrassment. However, when we look at the persecution of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, we see that Quraysh united a whole coalition of men like Abu Jahl, Abu Lahab, to systematically torture and wipe out the people of the movement. So we can see here that the problem is not merely the statement that God is one. The problem is what the Shahada demanded from society. And to understand this, we need to look into the Shahada. La ilaha illallah. The Shahada begins with negation. La ilaha. There is no deity. Before it affirms anything, it strips worthiness from everything else. As just stated, the Shahada is a statement of negation, meaning that the weight of this sentence depends on what is being negated. If ilah only means a statue, then the Shahada only rejects statues. If ilah is something that is prayed to in a temple, then the Shahada is only confined to ritualistic worship. To really understand this, let's look at what the word ilah means. In Maududi's book, 4 Key Concepts of the Quran, he details the etymology of the word ilah. He begins by tracing the word through its older meanings: refuge, protection, fear, longing, hiddenness, elevation, worship. From this, he says ilah carries the sense of one turned to for protection, the one believed to possess power, the one whose authority makes people inclined towards him. But Maududi goes even further. He argues that the Quran uses ilah not only for supernatural objects of worship, but also authorities whose command is treated as final. If a person accepts someone else's declaration of lawful and unlawful without caring what Allah has revealed, then that authority has been given a share in what belongs only to Allah. In his words, the essence of godhood is authority. And now this negation becomes heavier. La ilaha is not merely saying there are no legitimate idols or no legitimate gods. It is really saying that there is no legitimate authority. Then comes the affirmation, except Allah, illallah. The sentence does not leave man free after negating false gods. The Quran's argument, as stated by Madudi, is that all power and authority belong to Allah alone. Creation is His, legislation is His, and sovereignty belongs to Him alone. This is why the public da'wah changed everything. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, was not persecuted merely for private beliefs. The early call began quietly, among those closest to him. But when Allah commanded him to warn his nearest kin, the message moved into the open. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, stood before his relatives, warning them, calling them, placing their inherited beliefs under the judgment of Allah. Abu Lahab understood enough to object immediately. In the narration connected to, and warn your nearest kindred, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, called Quraysh together at the mountain and warned them of a punishment. Abu Lahab did not take the Shahada as solely a call to spiritual purification, nor did the Quraysh treat the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, as a monk who will be left alone and ridiculed. They understood that the call was contesting and judging the gods of Mecca, the priests of Mecca, the tribes of Mecca, the customs of Mecca, and the laws in which they used to arbitrate for man. To say La ilaha illallah meant that no created being had the final right to command. Not the idol, not the tribe, not the elder, nor the ruler, nor the self. This is the belief upon which Islamic civilization was built. Elsewhere, another political imagination started to form. A world where sovereignty would be spoken about differently. A world where man would become the measure of his political life. These arguments started in Europe, but they would not stay there.